Hey friends, I am trying something completely new, as you can tell. For this week's content, I am doing a vlog, and I think it's kind of funny and ironic that the topic that's been on my mind has been introverts or introvertism, however you want to call it, and like how introverts can thrive not only in what seems to be an extroverted world, but even zooming in on the workplace or a family or school or whatever. So I think it's really funny that even though I had started writing out the whole blog post, I was like, you know what? I think I want to do a video. And luckily, my wonderful husband has set me up. You can't even see the setup, but it's clever and it's well done. So I just told him, okay, I just need this and I just need to be alone. And so, which is funny, again, I just want to be alone. Didn't even want him in the room. But it's just different this week. So that particular topic of being an introvert and making sure that we can thrive, even when that's the personality type that we kind of identify with, it's possible. Sometimes we feel like we don't really fit the same mold that extroverts do. And regardless of whether you're an introvert or an extrovert and you're watching this, both sides are valuable, absolutely 100% valuable. So, I mean, my husband is an extrovert and he thrives in different ways that I don't thrive, and I know that I thrive in ways that he doesn't. So both sides are needed regardless. So humor me on this vlog because I'm so not comfortable with this. And I even have some notes just in case I get lost, because it's probably inevitable that it will. So let's dive in. So I identify as an introvert, and introverts, quiet, contemplative, seemingly reluctant most of the time to just communicate or share feelings right off the bat. Usually we are ultimately observing 10 times more than we're speaking or engaging. So that's kind of some of the qualities that if you are an introvert and you're reading, you're like, yeah, got it. Know that. I know that life. It said like we're 1/3 to 1/2 of the world are introverts. So kind of an interesting fact about that. And we might have some interesting challenges, which one obvious one would be big crowds. And, there's just something about it that kind of just like makes you just tense up and think about it. But there's one thing that I have as far as advice, and I tend to do this when either I go to parties or in a larger group of people that I'm unfamiliar with. I find the one. What does that really mean? Finding the one that may need you. Finding the one that may be like you. Maybe someone that's not like you. But sometimes in a crowd of people, you don't have to be the social butterfly. You don't have to just be buddy-buddy with every single person in the room. Sometimes there's just one person that really needs that connection from you. And so not to be intimidated by crowds, but to be able to find the one. And this typically happens when I'm going places like, if it's especially a group of people that I'm not familiar with, like I zone in on one person and I kind of just stick around with them. So even though it's still kind of in a comfort zone, just be able to give them your full attention. And I think that introverts do that well. We're really good listeners in the sense that, like I said, we observe so much, we take it all in, and sometimes people really need that. You may be talking to an extrovert that just has to pour their heart out to you because of what's going on in their life, and that's really what they needed. They needed someone to listen. And loving other people sometimes comes in the form of listening, because they just need to just exhale and let it all out. So that's just like common, super common, especially in groups that I'm not familiar with. Sometimes we're challenged with not wanting to be vulnerable. Like I said, putting out your thoughts or your emotions or communicate right away. even investing in other people. Sometimes we're hesitant to, make that connection. But again, we need people that are going to be like family. We need friends that are going to be as close as family that we can trust. And I can understand that people have been hurt in the past and that that's not easy for them. So I can understand that hurdle can be higher for some than others. But the reality is that people need us, and we can't do life alone. Like, life is not meant to just be, go to work, come home, eat, go to sleep, start all over. Like, that's not a thriving life, even for the most introverted person. Like, I know when I need time alone, and yet I know when I need a friend. And so finding that balance of knowing that not only do you as an introvert or even an extrovert need people, but us introverts have something to give to other people. And hopefully you see the value in yourself. You see the value in your story and how unique it is. No one can tell it like you. No one can have a conversation and connection like you, because there's some people that have influence with other people that I'll never be able to. And so everyone's ability to be that trustworthy person, be that family-like friend is, it's necessary. So you have that ability in you. And even though you're hesitant to do that, like, don't think that investing in people is a bad investment. I know you can get burned. I know you can get hurt. I know that sometimes those end up being one-sided investments, but there's times where the investment is tenfold and you can have lifetime friends. And so, you get in situations where you need to realize that people need you. People need what you have to give. Speaking of, like, being alone, introverts, it's not this definition of introverts, don't like being around people. It's that introverts are recharged and refreshed by being alone. And so, there's a time for people and there's a time to be alone. Like, I think that's kind of the scenario that goes through our minds when we're thinking about it. But what I've noticed is that even when I'm alone and I do get that time and I do get to rest and just get my mind back in order after maybe I've been to like 3 events with a bunch of different people and I just need to be alone. When I've had that ample time, I don't want to ever overstay that welcome, because I know myself enough that I can be alone so much that, especially if I'm maybe not in the best emotional state or, other areas of my mind or my life or whatever, if I'm not in a really good place, being alone can almost like enlarge some of the problems or the things that I'm working through. Solitude, over too much time can actually have adverse effects. Again, you're not meant to do life alone, but you know yourself, you know the time that you need to be refreshed, you know the time that you need to be recharged, and that's great. But don't overstay your welcome with that, because you can get so comfortable with that all of a sudden now your growth is stunted and you can't do the things that are, out of your comfort zone. You can't do the things that you're meant to grow in and progress in. So know yourself enough that you don't overstay your alone time. And I'm sure for like moms and stuff like that, your only hope, and you're an introvert, that you're only hoping for like a little segment of time. You're searching for that. So I don't doubt that, you take that time as precious, or that, I don't think you're overstaying your welcome, but just to know yourself enough, regardless of the situation, that you don't stay alone. Because sometimes as introverts, again, our minds are like thinking almost 10 times more. We're processing, and we're not really sometimes processing it with other people that have an outside perspective that can really help us gain a healthier perspective or a healthier balance in our life. So anyway, never be motivated by fear. I think sometimes introverts can just have this fear about us, of all the possibilities that could go wrong. Again, in our mind, that's kind of constantly rolling, we can think of the worst case scenarios, or we can think of the things that would happen if we put ourselves out there, or if we tried something that was totally not us, or just totally beyond what we think we could do. And instead of seeing something as a healthy challenge, instead of seeing the personal growth that you can gain and the potential of what could be, we're like shriveled back in fear. And I'm still working on this on a daily basis. Like, it's not anything easy. There's still things that I'm working on that I really know that are potentials for me, but I gotta continue to face straight on what is fear. But it's so tiny, I just make it so big in my mind, and I have to really not be motivated by fear, but instead just really focus on the positive, the what could be, the potential. Like, sometimes I ask myself, like, what's the worst that could happen? And there's really not a whole lot of detrimental things that could be the worst thing that could happen for me to risk, put myself out there or whatever. It might just be our pride that gets in the way a lot of the time, that keeps us shriveled back in fear of not, going after something that we really should. So don't be motivated by fear, but be motivated by the potential of what could be and the personal growth that's like right on the other side. So hopefully one of the challenges maybe you do or don't have is wanting to avoid people all the time. I can see how when you're getting close to needing that refreshment and that alone time, that feeling of like, I just need to be alone. Like, I know how that feeling can come on, but we shouldn't have that feeling all the time. Like, I don't think that's necessarily an introvert and an extrovert issue. I think it's more of a heart issue, like a love issue. Like, do I have the ability to love people that aren't like me, or don't look like me, don't sound like me, don't like the same things that I do? Like, sometimes it's those types of people that we can't relate to that may bring that feeling on a little stronger than obviously the ones that we're close with and the ones that enjoy the same things as us. Like, that's a different trigger for us, is the people that we don't always relate to. And again, I don't think that's a introvert extrovert. I think that you really need to check your heart and be able to say, am I able to love people that are hard to love? So when you are constantly like that, you need to be able to have an open heart to be able to say, look, not everyone's going to be easy to love. Not everyone's going to be easy to relate to. But at the end of the day, people are all still worth love, even though they've proven in ways that we think that they're not worthy, is that everybody needs it. So, having that feeling all the time is kind of a sign that we need to check our heart, that we need to be able to, know ourselves enough that, like, we know when we're getting to that critical state, we're getting to that state that's not okay, to be able to just look at everyone and say, oh my God, like, just go away. Like, it's not okay to push people back, because it's kind of a telltale sign that something deeper is happening in us if we're constantly, everyone needs to go away. Like, if that is a constant thought of yours, then, start with the people that are in your life that you really trust, to be able to talk through, like, I have a hard time with this. And, for those that, need to trust God and that really just need to ask Him, like, how do I navigate this? How do I navigate people that have personalities that are not even close to mine, and just being able to just ask God for the grace to be able to love these people, because that's ultimately what you need. You're never going to please both parties in a situation where you're complete opposites, and it's just never, you're on opposite spectrums of opinion and all that kind of stuff. You may not be able to please both parties in that, but you can say, Lord, I need the grace to be able to meet this person where they are, and just love them. And so that's possible. I think introverts think like, oh my God, it's impossible for me to ever want to be around people or want to just not have that feeling. But like I said, there's a time for people and there's a time to be alone, but you have to not let that expound too much, because then you will get in this defensive mode where you don't want anyone around in your life, and then you just isolated yourself and put yourself in just this spot where no one can help you. And so you really need to just like let there be a balance, let there be this grace that's going to be able to meet you and that other person or other people where they are, to just be able to love them, or whatever it is. It might be a customer, it might be someone who you meet in the grocery store. Like, it's anybody, anywhere. And so those are just some of the things that I really thought about that have been on my mind about, like, how do we navigate these situations, and how do we realize that God made us unique. It's okay to tell yourself that you're an introvert. You don't have to feel like you don't fit in because you're an introvert. You don't have to feel like you're on the outside looking in. You are valuable. And there's nothing that God wants more than just to show you that your unique qualities are completely an asset to other people. People need that. So be encouraged that even though when these types of situations come up, that you can find the one, that you realize that people need you, that you don't have to be motivated by fear. You can be motivated by growth. That isolation, too much of it, is totally a bad idea, and you may not benefit from it, that you might actually struggle more when there's too much of that. So hopefully that was concise. I don't know if this was a great idea, an okay idea. Again, I'm not used to doing this, so as an introvert, but I did it. So let that be kind of a challenge to all of you, that there's a lot of things that you might step out of your comfort zone in, but you're still going to know yourself that you need to recharge and be alone. That's okay. And if I could get my husband, who's an extrovert, to maybe make a video, that would be hilarious, to see the other side of the spectrum and how extroverts, they might have their own struggles that I have no idea about. So just know that you're valuable, either or, whatever side of the spectrum. You might be a hybrid, who knows, and that's cool too. So I hope you enjoyed this, and hey, feel free to let me know your thoughts, especially even if this vlog thing is cool. It might have been a little lengthy. I could try to narrow it down a little bit, but let me know your thoughts on what you think about this topic and what other topics you might want to hear or even read about. So thanks, friends. I'll see you next time.